disagreements. Do you think that Jake's gotten better as a boxer?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And listen, what Jake Paul has accomplished is he's fighting old guys.
Dana White has confirmed the shocking fight between Jake Paul and Conor McGregor, leaving fans and fighters stunned. How did a YouTuber turned fighter earn a chance to face boxing legends, especially against veterans who haven't fought in years? This unexpected matchup has left the combat sports world scratching its head in disbelief.
Yeah, he'll never do that, though. He knows. He knows way.
One, he's under contract. And two,
he's not his own boss.
And two, he won't do it. He knows better. He might
And it's
say,
funny to say, like, yo, Conor McGregor is scared of Jake Paul and will never box him, but it's.
The ironic truth of the fight game is that Jake Paul's rise isn't about skill, but about making money. As Dana White has often said, it's all about spectacle, drama, and the payday. Now we're faced with a matchup that feels less like a legitimate fight and more like a circus show, driven by entertainment over athleticism.
Yeah, so you never thought it's just like another little world, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm
Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor, a matchup that once seemed like a fever dream, has now become reality. Dana White himself has confirmed it, turning the unbelievable into a headline that has stunned the fight world.
Jake Paul, Conor McGregor, is that fight happening or what?
Probably not, no.
Are you closed off to it completely?
I'm never
Dana White, who once dismissed Jake Paul as a TikTok clown trying to play fighter, is now shaking hands and making deals, completely flipping the combat sports world upside down. If this isn't the wildest twist in MMA history, I don't know what is. But the real question is, why now? Why Jake Paul and why Conor McGregor? It turns out this isn't just a random cash grab, though let's not pretend the money involved isn't obscene. There's more to this fight than just the payday, and it's shaking up the sport in ways no one saw coming.
What we do here is completely different than what him and his brother are doing. You know what I mean? I'm looking for the absolute best in the world. These guys who have trained their whole life, they fight in these smaller shows, and then they make it to the UFC, and we put the best together.
This is Dana White's move to stay ahead in the fight game, tapping into a new audience while keeping old fans grumbling but glued to their seats. You've got Jake Paul, the YouTuber turned boxer turned MMA hopeful, stepping into the octagon. It's a fight that ignores tradition and rules, and that's what makes it genius. Whether you hate it, love it, or tweet angrily about it, one thing's for sure, you're still going to watch.
To say, like, yo, Conor McGregor is scared of Jake Paul and will never box him, but it's.
Let's talk about Jake Paul. He knows how to stir the pot. Remember when he called out Conor McGregor publicly? No weight class, straight M&A. The guy isn't afraid to challenge giants.
He did that tonight, but at the same time, you can't lose sight of the fact that man 58. But I'm not disappointed about it because it's a 58-year-old man that got whipped himself in that kind of shape to come in here and at least stand in front of.
Especially when you're a guy who just bulked up to fight Mike Tyson, a literal icon of knocking people into oblivion. Even at 58, Jake Paul beat him and now thinks he's ready to take on the Irish tornado, Conor McGregor.
He has a big name in the UK. The Pauls, that Tyson fight is just a strange one to me. I hope Tyson takes his nose off. I'm sure at some stage. We'll go through all.
Conor McGregor didn't take Jake's challenge lying down. The guy practically invented trash talk as a modern art form, firing back with, Jake Paul is the biggest pissbag I've ever seen in my life. But Jake didn't back down. He kept trolling, tweeting, posting videos, and turning up the heat until the noise became impossible to ignore. And guess what? It worked. This isn't just a fight anymore. It's a spectacle. The kind of event you tell your friends about, whether they're into MMA or not, because it's more about the drama than the sport.
To say, like, yo, Conor McGregor is scared of Jake Paul and will never box him, but it's truth. And look at him go toe-to-toe with Nate Diaz, who...
Jake Paul's timing is classic. He's not just riding high on confidence after wins over Nate Diaz and Tyson. He's practically surfing a massive wave of self-belief, ready for anything that comes next.
The YouTuber nerds could be like, I would consider that a nixer. Your uncle's friend needs a radiator fitted in his house, so you'll do a side job and get a side pay. I would consider them guys to be.
This fight isn't just about Jake Paul's ego or Conor McGregor's comeback. It's a defining moment for combat sports. Jake stepping into the MMA cage marks a seismic shift. Jake versus Conor is bigger than MMA or boxing. It's the ultimate crossover event where a YouTuber collides with a legacy fighter.
Conor has 2 fights left on his fight deal, but the UFC is trying to renew their rights deal because they license their content, which are the fights, to platforms. So they're trying to renew their deal with their negotiating multiple people, but let's say it's going to go with.
Let's not pretend Conor McGregor is sitting pretty. He has 2 fights left on his UFC contract, and the timing is perfect. The UFC is in the middle of negotiating broadcast rights, and having Conor headline a fight gives them insane leverage. Dana White isn't just booking fights, he's playing chess on a whole different level, making strategic moves.
And
He's not his own boss.
And 2, he won't do it. He knows better. He might
And it's
say,
funny to say, like, yo, Conor McGregor is scared of Jake Paul and will never box him, but it's the.
Here we are watching Jake Paul tweak his way into a fight no one thought possible, while Conor McGregor, the king of comebacks, gears up for what could be the most bizarre, talked about clash in fight history. Is it about respect? No. Legacy? Maybe for Conor. Money? Definitely. But more than anything, it's about 2 worlds colliding in the loudest, most chaotic way possible, creating a spectacle that's impossible to ignore.
And get him the most amount of money. A part of that negotiation is, hey, we have Conor McGregor for 2 more fights. But if he were to fight now, that wouldn't be a part of the negotiation.
Conor McGregor's contract situation is so juicy, it could outdo any soap opera. The man hasn't stepped foot in the octagon in over 2 years, and the real reason lies in the USC's ironclad contract keeping him locked down.
You'd be like, oh, yeah, well, you only have Conor for one fight. So that's why Conor's not fighting right now. And this is what they do to the fighters is, if you sign the contract that you didn't sign, if you win, then you're like locked in for 3 more fights or something like that. And there's each contract is different, but you basically don't want to win because then you're locked.
For Conor McGregor, the UFC essentially owns him until he fulfills his contractual obligations. With the UFC deep into renegotiating their broadcast rights deal, having a name like McGregor's in the mix gives Dana White immense leverage. Dana's no fool. He's been vocal about feeling owned and operated by the UFC, even hinting at legal battles if he doesn't get the fights he wants. But this fight with Jake Paul could be Dana's masterstroke. It might just give the UFC what they need and Conor what he wants. A lucrative fight that satisfies both sides while making everyone happy in the process.
He shouldn't even be fighting Conor McGregor. These guys are huge. He's huge. His brother's huge. I mean, what's your brother, 6'1"?
Yeah.
210?
Yeah.
Conor McGregor's 145, 155 pounds.
Oh, he fights that low. I thought he fights like 160. I thought he fights like
He's looking a bit
165,
thick now.
170.
He's looking a bit.
Conor McGregor hasn't fought since July 2021 when he shattered his leg in his fight against Dustin Poirier. That's a long layoff, and in the fight world, ring rust is real. Meanwhile, Jake Paul has been active, bouncing from fight to fight like he's got something to prove. And let's face it, he does. Then there's the weight difference. Jake Paul walks around at a solid 190 Obs, while McGregor has spent most of his career fighting at 155 Obs. That's a 40-pound gap, which might as well be a canyon in combat sports. How will this play out in an MMA fight? Will Jake's size and power give him the edge, or will Conor's speed and technique be too much for the younger fighter?
What about you and Conor McGregor? Are you interested in that?
Yeah, he'll never do that, though. He knows. He knows way.
One, he's under contract.
Let's not underestimate Jake Paul's growing reputation. He's gone from a punchline to a legitimate name in combat sports. Sure, the purists still roll their eyes, but even they can't deny the numbers. For Conor McGregor, this fight is a chance to remind everyone who he is and prove that, despite injuries, time off, and distractions, he's still Asterisk, the notorious Asterisk, the one and only.
Paul saying he was banned from all UFC events and then put the costume on.
Yeah, nobody's banned from the UFC. Listen, that kid knows how to mark.
Dana White, who spent years scoffing at Jake Paul like a pest buzzing around the UFC's greatness, has just pulled the ultimate plot twist. He greenlit Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor. Let's be real, this isn't just a fight, it's a gamble. Dana's rolling the dice as if his entire Las Vegas empire depends on it, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
Paul have had your disagreements. Do you think that Jake's gotten better as a boxer?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And listen, what Jake Paul has accomplished is he's fighting old guys.
Yes.
He's fighting, all he fights are old guys and whatever. But listen, say what you want, he wins. And he makes money.
The irony here is rich. Dana White has spent years trashing Jake Paul, treating him like a TikTok star trying to break into the Olympics. He's called Paul a clown, mocked his boxing career, and dismissed his fights as fake. But now, Jake Paul is walking into the UFC's world with fists up and his social media army in tow. Let's talk about the wild cards in this fight because there are plenty. First up, Jake Paul's secret weapon is absolute shamelessness. The guy's not afraid to negotiate crazy fight rules, like oversized gloves that give him just enough of an edge. If there's a loophole, Jake will find it. And if the fight ends in controversy, no problem. He's turned a split decision loss to Tommy Fury into a full-blown marketing campaign, complete with tweets, memes, and endless press coverage.
I would consider that a nixer. Your uncle's friend needs a a radiator fitted in his house, so he'll do a side job and get a side pay. I would consider them guys to be.
Then there's Conor McGregor. His temper, about as stable as nitroglycerin in a blender. McGregor's unpredictability is as much a part of his brand as his left hook. Could he lose it during the press tour? Absolutely. Could that spill over into the fight itself? You bet. And honestly, wouldn't that just make the whole thing even more entertaining? The fallout, no matter who wins, will be massive. If Jake Paul pulls off the unthinkable and beats Conor McGregor in an MMA fight, it's game over for anyone who's ever doubted him. He won't just be a YouTuber dabbling in combat sports. He'll be the face of crossover fights, the guy who toppled a UFC icon in his own domain. At that point, who's going to say no to Jake Paul? Not Dana White, that's for sure. Jake will have the leverage to demand even bigger fights, maybe even a shot at a UFC title. Crazy, sure, but so is this entire fight, and if Conor wins, well, it's the comeback story of a lifetime. McGregor, a man who's been written off by half the MMA world, steps back into the spotlight and reclaims his throne. A win against Jake Paul doesn't just boost Conor's ego, it cements his status as the ultimate crossover king, the one who can take on anyone, anywhere, and still come out on top. It's the kind of victory that puts him back in the headlines for all the right reasons, erasing the narrative of his injuries and inactivity. But let's not forget the ripple effect. This fight could spark an entire wave of crossover matchups, shaking up the combat sports world for years to come.